Like every night, I resist going to sleep to avoid meeting my nightmares. Laughter from the television in the living room echoes off the walls of my room, and I lie in bed, curled up like a fetus, attempting to sleep with a restlessness as if my sheets were filled with thorns. However, it is of no use no matter how much I try to silence the voice in my head. Despite my efforts to shut it up, that rough and thick voice persistently speaks. Even if I cover my ears with my hands, it's futile. This voice, constantly whispering that I am dead, has been getting louder, as if trying to make itself heard to everyone around me, from a time I can't remember how long ago. I'm afraid to look in the mirror. I'm terrified that the owner of the voice will emerge from within me and strangle me. When I tried to explain a bit to my father recently, without putting down the newspaper in his hand, he said, "These are normal. If you entered my mind while I'm thinking about this house and your future, you'd think I belonged in a mental institution, and shut me up." My mother, on the other hand, is only concerned with the decline in my grades. How will my friends look at me with these grades? What I eat is in front of me, and what I don't is behind me. What is that voice? I shouldn't tell anyone about these things, or they would call me crazy, and I would attach a madness not present in our family's history onto myself just to draw attention and harm their honor and social status. It's all because of the books I read. That teacher, whatever her name is the cause of all these nonsense. What business do I have with classics? Are these books meant for a 17-year-old boy? Why am I exhausting my brain with books written in who knows which century when I have textbooks? Why am I burdening my mind with Russian novels? I no longer tell my mother anything because she keeps repeating the same things. I'm scared, more scared than anyone can imagine. I'm so afraid that what the voice in my head says is true, that even when eating the meals my mother prepares, I've started to go hungry, thinking she might poison me. When my father asked me last Sunday what was bothering me, I told him I couldn't sleep again, that I was scared. The light slap I received on the back of my head felt as heavy as a cannonball at that moment. My father said, "Would a real man be afraid? Let's not talk about what you just said. Otherwise, we might switch roles. Don't be so timid, I don't understand who you take after." With these words, he got up from the breakfast table. I just stared after him. Now I lie in bed without moving at all. The gentle breeze that moves the curtains turns into a huge ghost entering my room. Closing my eyes tightly doesn't help. The ghost I see has its eyes fixed on me at my bedside, merging with the voice in my head, telling me what I need to do. I can't even hear the prayer I silently make for my mother to come into the room. Someone needs to cut my brain and silence these voices, or else I will cut my own head. I've also started to sway. My father and mother keep warning me, but they seem to have plugged their ears to my cries for help. I must sleep, and I must sleep so deeply that I never wake up again. I don't know how much time has passed, but suddenly I woke up with a start. This was not my room. I am in a gloomy, cold room with a dull gray color all around. A chilling sensation sneaking into me was causing my whole body to tremble. I sat up from where I was lying, pulled my legs up to my stomach, and started to sway. Where was I? Had I woken up in the middle of a nightmare? Where are my mother and father, and why is the fear inside me increasing? I couldn't remember when I put on the clothes I was wearing, no matter how hard I tried. I leaned my head against the wall was as cold as inside me, but besides the shivering, swaying, and uncontrollable tremors, I felt as if I were glued to the concrete and couldn't move. The voice in my head had been silent for a long time, it wasn't talking. Strangely, I felt happy about this. I held my head with my hands. I didn't know what I was trying to do, but it seemed as if everything had come to an end. I felt a desire to fall into a deep sleep. There was only a chair and a table in the room. It didn't matter at all. The voice in my head was silent, so what harm would it do if I fell asleep where I was sitting? I turned my eyes to the white lamp burning on the ceiling. It made a strange noise. As the door opened, I turned my head in that direction. A tall and sturdy man entered. Involuntarily, I tried to hide from him in the place where I was sitting so that he wouldn't see me. But I knew it wouldn't work. The man approached with slow movements and stood right in front of me. After nodding his head slightly from side to side, he knelt down on his knees and stared into my eyes. Though his expression was stern, there was kindness in his gaze. "Have you come to your senses, Mike?" he asked, and I was surprised. I nodded my head. I didn't remember how I got here or what had happened, but it seemed like I had no other choice but to nod my head as if that was the right answer. Right at that moment, the voice in my head started speaking again. "Don't tell him anything." The joy I felt a moment ago disappeared instantly. I closed my eyes and waited for the nightmare to end. When a hand grabbed my arm, I jerked and opened my eyes. The man was helping me to stand up. I obeyed him like a puppet. My whole body was numb, and my trembling had increased. As he approached the table, he sat me down on the chair and stood directly in front of me. This time, he asked, "Mike, do you know where you are right now?" I shook my head so rapidly that my neck hurt. Although I knew deep down where I was, I struggled to accept it. I had a thought that if I denied it, my nightmare would end. The man placed his hands on the table and asked the same question again. I, however, had swallowed my tongue, and it seemed as if I had never spoken in my life. I couldn't utter any words. I bowed my head, not conscious of what I was doing. Suddenly, with a weak childlike voice that seemed not my own, I said, "Mom." Even I was surprised by this, and then I burst into laughter. The man in front of me first withdrew his hands and then took a step back from the table. I was still laughing, and the voice in my head was also laughing. After a moment of hesitation, the man approached me from the table and said, "Snap out of it, a child psychologist and an officer from the juvenile division will come to take your statement soon." When he said this, my laughter abruptly stopped. I looked at him. Somehow, he looked at me with an expression as he extended his hand to pat my hair. Meanwhile, I pulled my legs up to my stomach on the chair, swaying again. Tears were flowing involuntarily from my eyes. While I didn't understand why I was crying, the man said in a compassionate tone, "Cry, don't hold back, you'll feel better." Even though I didn't understand why he said that, I continued to cry and sway. The voice in my head was now saying that everything was over, that I shouldn't be afraid, and that we would do many things together from now on. But I was still very scared. I covered my ears with my hands. The more I tried not to hear him, the louder he raised his voice. I didn't notice when the door opened and the woman and the man came in. When the woman touched my shoulder, I almost felt like falling off the chair out of fear. She was staring at me with black eyes, looking at me strangely. I could barely hear her voice from a distance, telling me there was no reason to be afraid or tense. I hadn't noticed when the first man left the room and returned with a chair. The woman sat on this chair, stood in front of me, and said, "I'm going to ask you a few questions, but you don't have to answer if you don't want to." She continued, "My name is Laura, I'm a psychologist." "What is your name?" When she asked my name, I got scared. The voice in my head was telling me that she would harm me and that I shouldn't answer her questions. But I did. The woman nodded to herself, saying, "Good, good." Then, with a slight smile, she asked, "Mike, do you remember what you were doing before coming here?" As she asked this question, I once again shook my head rapidly, closed my eyes, and hugged my legs to my stomach with my arms. My swaying intensified, even though I didn't want it to. The woman, holding the hand that was on my leg, said, "Those clothes look great on you. Can you tell me where you got them?" At that moment, I realized that the clothes on me couldn't belong to me. I stood up and started screaming in fear, "These are not mine." While yelling, I was also trying to take off the sweater I was wearing. Everyone in the room gathered around me, speaking in a language I didn't understand. The voice in my head kept telling me to stay away from them. I couldn't get the clothes off. Exhausted, I crouched down under the table, lay down curled up like a fetus, facing to the right. The woman, sitting on her knees beside me, tried to calm me down, assuring me that they wouldn't harm me and urging me to tell what I knew. I, however, could only utter the word "Mom" in that childlike voice. The woman pulled my hair away from my face and asked, "Mike, what happened to your mom?" The voice in my head said that I killed her, loudly. Suddenly, I felt frozen in place, as if concrete had been poured over me. I wasn't swaying anymore. The voice kept repeating the same sentence, getting louder. This couldn't be true, I was definitely in a nightmare. Otherwise, why couldn't I speak? It felt like all the words except "Mom" had been erased from my memory. The woman was trying to get me to stand up by holding my arm. The man who came with her was just watching me. I was scared of him, there was something different in his gaze. Suddenly, something came to my mind. I didn't know if it was real or a dream. But I had seen my mom in the living room, she was lying on the floor, covered in blood. I touched her, hugged her, but I don't know if I cried. Then I saw a woman or a man coming out of the terrace door opening to our backyard. They were dressed in black. But this couldn't be real, I know it's not real. Just a nightmare. I will wake up soon, take a look at the nonsense TV show my mom was watching, try to talk to her again, and enter my room with fear. It must be like that. It can't be any other way. It shouldn't be. The voice in my head was laughing, saying, "Finally happened," and screaming, "Look, you got rid of your mom." The woman was looking at my face. She stroked my hair, asking, "Mike, did you remember something? Please try to sit down and tell me what you remember, I want to help you." For the first time in a long time, someone wanted to help me. "I'm scared," I managed to say. The woman told me not to be afraid, that she was there for me. "Please allow me to help you. Come, let's sit on this chair first." I was afraid that if I sat on the chair, what I saw would be real. When I shook my head, the woman sat down on the floor. "Did you leave the house at all today? Did you see your friends? Your mom, or your dad? My friends found you wandering in the empty streets while shouting. Do you remember?" When she said that, I felt as if someone else had done it, and I had watched. I tried to tell her that I remembered by nodding my head up and down. "Beautiful," she continued, speaking with a smile. "So, do you remember what she said when she was yelling?" I couldn't recall. The voice in my head kept saying I did it, but I didn't know what I had done. "Look, sweetheart, you keep repeating the same words. You scream, I didn't do it, can't you understand? I didn't do it." The voice in my head started yelling, insisting that I had done it for no reason. To avoid hearing the voice, I began to look at the woman's face. What was her name? I had forgotten, but it didn't matter. She looked at me and asked, "Do you believe I can help you?" I nodded quickly. She reached for my arm again, trying to lift me. This time, I complied and sat on the chair. My hair fell over my face, and she reached out, gently fixing it. It felt like she was combing my hair. Suddenly, a memory from my childhood accompanied my tears. On the first day of kindergarten, my mom had lovingly combed my hair like this. I tried to focus on the woman with empty eyes. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to listen to her instead of the voice in my head. Something in her eyes kept me looking at her. Mike asked if you remember the question. "Can you tell me as much as you remember, please?" Yes, I was going to tell. Finally, with difficulty, I managed to say, "I hear the voice in my head. Not you. I'm scared, very scared." "Do you hear that voice too? Are you scared too?" "I'm here so you don't have to be scared," she said in a soft voice. "I don't hear the voice. What does it say to you? That we're going to do more things, that we're free now. And it keeps saying, you did it, but I didn't do anything, I didn't." Now I was yelling too. "What does it say you did?" "It just says, you did it, nothing else." "Okay, when was the last time you saw your mom and dad?" "Can you tell me?" "My dad. I didn't see him today. My mom was at home, watching a show and laughing." "Did you tell her you were going out?" "No. I didn't tell her because she was lying in the living room covered in blood. I shook her, hugged her, there was a knife in her somewhere." "Continue, sweetheart, I'm listening." Don't be afraid, I'm here to help you, understand? Please look into my eyes, look at me. When I hugged my mom, the knife went deeper. I heard the voice. But it was a dream. It's not real. I always have nightmares like this. The voice in my head tells me no one will understand, that if I tell them, they'll think I'm crazy. But I don't listen to it either. I've told my mom and dad many times about the voices in my head. They didn't believe me, they said it was normal. That's why I keep my nightmares to myself, I don't tell anyone. This is also a nightmare, and soon I'll wake up and go to my mom. I know I'll go, of course, you'll go, but now try to remember what happened in that nightmare. Then you'll go, and I'll help you. I was in my room, trying to sleep, I think I fell asleep. People don't have nightmares when they're awake. I was also sleeping in my dream. I woke up with the sound of something breaking and walked towards the living room. My mom was lying on the floor in front of the couch. There was blood everywhere. I was scared, but I went to her, screamed, hugged her, but she wasn't looking at me. Her eyes were closed. Then I saw someone, they were looking at me from the door leading to the terrace. I left my mom on the floor and tried to wipe the blood off me with my hands. I cried. I wanted to wake up, but I couldn't. The person I saw came to me, lifted me from the floor, and took me to the bathroom. They turned on the tap, and I started washing the blood off my hands. Then they helped me, took off my clothes, and put them in the dirty laundry basket. I saw their hands for the first time, they had black gloves. They left me there, just as they were about to leave the bathroom, they said, "You killed your mom." I said it's a nightmare. Why would I kill my mom? While I was thinking that, the voice in my head started saying she didn't love you, remember? I didn't want to hear that. My mom loved me, and this was just a nightmare. I was going to ask her when I woke up. But it's still going on. I'm cold now, please help me wake up. I promise I won't say I hear voices again, even if I do, I won't say it. I want to wake up, okay, sweetheart, you calm down. So, do you know the person you saw in your nightmare? Take your time, don't rush, no, I don't know them. Do you know everyone you see in your dreams? Of course not, but sometimes a small detail can guide us when we wake up. I don't have that in my nightmares because I don't remember most of them due to fear, but look, you remember this one. Think again, were they slim, tall, what color were their eyes and hair? Did your mom say anything? No, I didn't hear anything, don't you understand? It's just a nightmare. Why should I pay attention? I forget everything when I wake up, okay, sweetheart, calm down a bit. I hear you very well, and I understand, but please don't forget that I'm here to help you. I suddenly felt embarrassed. For the first time, someone believed in the voices I heard and the horrifying nightmares. Trying to look at her again, I said, they were dressed in black. They covered their hair, had a ski mask on their face. They were slim, like you, about my aunt's height. My aunt. Why would my aunt harm my mom even in a nightmare? It's so absurd. This nightmare should end, why am I saying these things? Why can't I wake up? This feels so real, for the first time, my nightmares never felt this real. But now, I'm freezing. And the voice in my head is saying it's not a nightmare, it's real. It can't be real, right? Answer me, this can't be real. Or did my mom really die? I started shaking again, and I was crying without realizing it. There was a pain inside me. Could there be pain in nightmares? I'm so sorry, Mike. Our friends found you on the street, wearing only underwear, and brought you here to the police. There was no ID on you. When they investigated the area where they found you, they learned that you live in the neighborhood above. Your house's front door was open, and your mom was really lying in the living room covered in blood. They informed your dad. He couldn't come immediately because he's out of town, but his plane is about to land soon. As soon as your dad arrives, we'll admit you to the hospital and keep you under observation. I'm really sorry, I couldn't hear her anymore. My mom was gone, and since I was here, and the voice in my head said, you did it. I must have killed my mom. No, this couldn't be true, absolutely not. Why would I ever kill my mom? I suddenly stood up, and everyone in the room was looking at me. I started yelling, who was the one dressed in black, washing my hands? They harmed my mom, I can't do such a thing. I only hear voices and have nightmares, but I didn't do anything to my mom, do you understand? I didn't do anything, I no longer understood what was being said. Lips were moving, hands were holding me, but I couldn't hear them. I fell to the ground, curled my knees to my chest, and wrapped my arms around my legs. I was falling into a dark pit. Initially, I was scared, but now, strangely, I felt peaceful. It was as if walls were built around me, and I wouldn't allow anyone to enter that wall. While gazing out of the window of my room, I heard the door open, but I didn't turn my head. I had stopped talking altogether. Since being brought here, I had only been trying to comply with the mandatory things the nurses and doctors did to me. The voice in my head had completely gone silent, and I felt like an emptied-out animal. When I heard a voice other than my father's and my doctor's, I started listening without moving. I recognized the owner of the voice. It was the voice of the woman who first believed in me in that small strange room. What was her name? I couldn't remember. I began to listen. Doctor, we're very pleased with our patient's progress. I wanted to visit and provide you with information and see the mic. I didn't believe he was the killer. As soon as I turned towards them upon hearing this last sentence, they didn't notice. My father nodded, but my doctor listened to the woman with keen interest, just like me. Holding my breath, I continued to listen. Based on the information provided by Mike, our colleagues from the police have started to investigate the case thoroughly. Although the killer tried not to leave any clues. We found 2 different sets of footprints in the house. The first footprint, soaked in the victim's blood, belonged to Mike. But there was another different footprint. Even though the step length was faint, it corresponded to 64 centimeters. This indicated that our killer was approximately 1 meter 60 centimeters tall. Mike mentioned a person dressed in black while talking to me and said it was like his aunt. In the course of the investigation, we questioned everyone with communication to family, relatives, and neighbors. In the end, we found out that Mike was not mistaken. The one who killed his mother was indeed his aunt. The reason was a dispute over inheritance. I remembered this. My aunt kept saying she was being treated unfairly, claiming that my mother got more. However, the inheritance had been divided equally. My grandmother had only left my mother a diamond necklace and earrings. A year ago, my aunt asked for the necklace from my mother, and when my mother said it was rightfully hers, the argument turned into a fight. In a strange way, as I focused on listening to him recall that day down to the smallest detail, I witnessed my father's regret for the first time and was surprised. There were tears in his eyes. He, too, was listening to the woman with bated breath. I say this with sorrow, Doctor. Mike has told his aunt that he hears voices and experiences nightmares close to reality. She, in turn, tried to blame the child for killing her sister, but she couldn't anticipate that the child could speak. Even if he spoke, she expressed that she believed no one would believe him. I'm very glad for Mike. His treatment progressing well will lead to his holding on to life again. I will also try to be a part of his life as much as I can. After finishing his words, he looked at me. Unable to resist the unconditional love in his gaze, I couldn't hold back the tears streaming down my eyes. Thank you, I said in a voice that even startled myself. I can't tell you how much of a great kindness you've done by believing in me. If I had actually killed my mother, I assure you, I would have seized the first opportunity to stop breathing. My father and the woman approached me, reassuring me that everything would be okay. My doctor also explained to them how I would improve as long as I continued my treatment. I wanted this too. Healing, starting a new life, and completely forgetting the past were my greatest hopes. When I felt my father's strong hand on my shoulder, I clung even more to this hope. thank you for listening, I hope you enjoyed the story. If you liked the story, don't forget to press the like button. See you in new and chilling stories.